I'm Justin Goodhand, and I am the Assistant Director for iClaudia with Talk is Free Theatre. I guess it's the story of a family, really. I mean, it's the story of a young girl who's going through a lot. She's at sort of a really important time in her life. She's a preteen, dealing with family and school. It's a play about imagination. It takes place primarily in the boiler room of her school, where Claudia goes to escape and mend and sort of sort through some of the harder issues that she's facing. And you know, it's just about that delicate time in everybody's life. There's a line in the show that sums it up for me, where she's talking to her dad, and her dad says, "You're old enough to understand." And she says, "Yeah, well, then why don't I?" You know, and it's just that moment when where you're starting to think like an adult, where you're starting to be perceived as a young adult, and yet you don't have all the pieces quite yet. You know, you're not quite there yet. And just that rough patch where you're not a child anymore and you're not quite an adult, and how you negotiate the world around you. I mean, just sort of in an obvious kind of practical way, I love the use of mask in the show. I mean, the show really does hinge on that aspect of it. It's so transformative. It's an amazing one-person show that doesn't feel like a one-person show. A lot of one-person shows, the main actor is often asked to portray other people, because it's very difficult to have a story with only one person on stage. But with the introduction of the mask work, you get to meet this amazing cast of players and these really, really awesome characters, these really real characters, which I guess then makes me want to say that this show avoids stereotype at every turn. It avoids cliche. You know, it seems like it might go down that road when you first meet people. You get a couple glimpses of each character throughout the play, and at the beginning, you know, you meet this young girl and she's got her troubles and stuff, and you go, oh, you know, I've seen that before. You've got the janitor from another country who had a great life and then came here and is maybe not living his dreams so much. And you go, oh, well, maybe I've seen that before too, etc., etc. But then as the play goes on and as you get to know these people, you find that it's the farthest thing from what you expected. And these people are all really rich, really real, really funny, and incredibly vulnerable. And everyone is relatable. Even the people you don't think you like so much have a really strong heart, and you can't help but feel for everybody in the show. Claudia is amazing. She is so honest. She says everything, and not without difficulty. You know, as she negotiates her relationship with the audience and the people in her life, she stumbles and she says things and takes them back and all that stuff, but she's really honest with herself and with us, with the people she shares her story with, the audience. And it really is her story, and it's a real treat to watch her figure it out. And because of how well she's written, you know, I remember I didn't have any of necessarily the same experiences specifically that Claudia did, but on some level, I'm like, she's me. She's like, I remember that time. Yeah, I really like Claudia a lot, and she's just so cute. You know, iClaudia is a really unique show because there's one actor in the show. So specifically on iClaudia, my role is rather amorphous. You know, I'm an assistant to Mitchell, who's the director. So on this, it involves taking a lot of notes, being a second set of eyes in the room, someone to bounce ideas off of, another contributor to the overall creative process. Research, you know, Drachman, one of the characters, has a sort of vaguely Slavic accent, and so I'm going to be sort of working with Amy on some of that stuff, and being able to have two sets of eyes watching for two different things. You know, Mitchell can be engaged with the really active directorial work of being the detective through the text and the staging and stuff, and I can, you know, depending on what he wants me to do at any given time, you know, during a run or during scene work, I can keep an eye on physical work, or I can sort of prioritize different things that I'm keeping an eye on that aren't a priority for him at that moment, but are going to be important in the overall scheme of things. Oftentimes with most other shows, there's more than one actor, and so you can often run secondary rehearsals. You can run like running lines with the actors while they're not being used. If it's like a cast of, let's say, 5 or 6, and there's a couple actors who have a scene together, but the director's working a different scene in what you call a primary rehearsal, you can run a secondary rehearsal, in which case you're sort of responsible for upholding the work that has been done in the room, sort of maintaining the director's vision and trying to move it forward so that we can come back into the room ahead of the game and not waste any time. Yeah, another person to sort of troubleshoot things, move things around, an assistant to the stage manager as well. Just an overall extra body in the room to be a support system. It's really just it's a means of being a support system. And that's, I guess, what the assistant director offers the room. Assistant directing isn't a career. It isn't a sort of end goal or a position to end up in. It's a learning opportunity. It's an apprenticeship. It's a way for people who are interested in directing, who want to learn more, to get in the room, observe, take notes, see how things are done, ask questions, try new things. And so I've done some directing. I work primarily as an actor, but for me this is a great opportunity to observe a process. It allows you to have no stakes in the process. You know, working as an actor, I'm always engaged with the director and making observations about how he or she works, but I'm also more consumed with what I'm doing. When I've directed, again, you know, I'm trying to learn and be alive in the room, but also I've got my own agenda and I've got things that I need to accomplish. As an assistant director, it's a really unique opportunity to be a true observer and just absorb. With Talk is Free, I guess the first show I did was maybe in 2010 or 2011. It was a musical called One Step Forward, and I was an actor in that. And that was done as like what you call a musical work in concert. So huge cast, new show, new score by Leslie Arden, who's a very famous Canadian composer. And we put that up at Georgian College in the amphitheater there, and that was really fun. And then I did Great Expectations, directed by Richard Ozunian, with a great group of actors. Alex Posh Golden, who anyone who's seen some Talk is Free theater shows for the past few years is familiar with that guy. Good friend, amazing actor. So I played Pip in that production of Great Expectations. And then Possible Worlds by John Mighton, which was last season. And that show was a really great experience, and we actually got to take that show to Germany, which was really fun. Yeah, and this season I'm doing this because this is sort of what works with my schedule and where my mind is right now. It was a great opportunity to work with artists who I love on shows I love. So that's my journey with Talk is Free. Arcady once roped me into teaching the March Break Camp, which I will never do again. I'd never acted when I first went into high school. I'd never performed at all. I had a bit of a music background. I liked to sing and I played piano. But at that point, I was either going to be an English professor, sort of grandiose, pompous dreams of, you know, being an English professor at Oxford or something really sort of elaborate. Or I wanted to be a psychology, not a psychology. I wanted to be a psychologist. But I went to high school, and I went to high school with no one I knew. I was at a totally different school than where all my friends had gone from elementary school. So I didn't know anybody, and I remember it was like the first or second week, and I didn't have a lot of friends yet. And it was either try out for the football team or the school musical, and I'm not an athlete. So I went for the musical, and I was immediately hooked. And I mean that without any cliche. Within the first couple of weeks of working on that show, I went home and I told my parents I was going to be an actor. And I've never, for a moment, wavered. This was in grade 9, so I was maybe 14. And yeah, it's been a very hard and straight path. So I did that all through high school. I did tons and tons of shows, and then I went to theater school, went to the George Brown Theater School and trained as an actor. And I've been working consistently, professionally ever since. If you want to be an actor, get really good at everything. Keep up your French, learn about science, learn about history. You know, I have a few regrets about the path, not where I've ended up, but things I didn't take advantage of when they were at my disposal. You know, it's really easy to get really narrow-minded and go, well, I'm going to be an actor, so I don't need science, I don't need gym, I don't need, you know, like I'm just going to take drama and music, and all that's great. But, you know, like acting is like living, you know, it's the living muscle, and you need to have something to act about. I had a teacher say that to me once, and you know, if you live in this sort of insular drama world, you're not in the real world, you've got nothing to act about. You lose touch with the people you're playing. And, you know, keep up your science, keep up your math, read a lot, read out loud every day. Do it all. It's all going to make you better. Especially if you're in grade 9. Because you've still got a few years to change your mind. Which brings me to my second point, which is if you can do anything else, do that. It's not an easy life, and it can be very rewarding. But if you have skills that would make you good at something else, and you think you could be happy doing that, don't go be an accountant because your parents think you should be an accountant. But if you think that you could live a totally happy, awesome life being an accountant, you should totally do that. If you know that you really want to be an actor, and that's the only thing that's going to make you happy, and you're really good at it, or you want to get really good at it, then you're probably going to be an actor.